Hey guys, tonight we slip quietly into a sleepy little town nestled somewhere deep in Vermont, where the trees drip syrup and the silence after dark isn't just peaceful, it's legally enforced. You walk along a narrow gravel road as moonlight catches in the mist like secrets trying to hide. Windows glow faintly in timber framed houses, but not a soul stirs. And as your breath fogs in the crisp night air, you feel it, a hush too heavy for comfort. There's something off here, like the town itself is holding its breath. You pause near a lamppost. It's crooked, rusty, probably hasn't been touched since the Eisenhower administration. You're tempted to whistle, just a soft little tune, maybe to shake the eerie quiet loose. But a cold breeze brushes your neck, like a warning. You hesitate, and it's a good thing you do, because in this particular town, whistling after midnight isn't just frowned upon, it's illegal. Yeah, you probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Feel free to post your location and what time it is where you are. I always love knowing who's listening from the shadows of the night. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're in a place called Maple Hollow. Don't bother Googling it. It's the kind of town that doesn't want to be found. There's no website, no active phone lines after 9 p.m. And if you ask the locals, they'll tell you that's exactly how they like it. You step onto the porch of your rental cabin. It creaks dramatically, because of course it does. Inside, the decor is aggressively quaint. Quilts, dried lavender, a cuckoo clock that ticks with passive-aggressive judgment. But it's warm, and after that long drive up the mountain road, that's all that matters. You toss your bag on the bed and open the window a crack. The air smells like pine, old paper, and maybe just a little regret. It's oddly comforting. You sit down in the rocker, yes, a literal creaky wooden rocking chair, and let the silence wrap around you like a weighted blanket. Somewhere in the distance, a loon cries out over the lake. It's haunting, but kind of beautiful. You almost hum in response, then stop yourself. That little voice in the back of your head reminds you something about local ordinances and nighttime noise. You grab the town welcome pamphlet, expecting tourist fluff, but right on the first page, in bold red ink, is a section titled After Dark Conduct. Visitors are kindly reminded that whistling between the hours of 12 a.m. and 6 a.m. is strictly prohibited under Ordinance 47B, originally enacted in 1891. Violations may result in a citation, fine, or other municipal intervention. Well, that's oddly specific. You flip the page, half expecting a just kidding, but there it is again in the FAQ. Q. What if I accidentally whistle while dreaming? A. We advise you to sleep facing the pillow. No exceptions. You can't help but chuckle, but a twinge of unease lingers. You put the pamphlet down. Outside, the wind kicks up. The trees rustle like an audience waiting for the cue. You hear a twig snap. Footsteps? Maybe. You peer through the window slats. Nothing. But your skin prickles with the sensation of being watched. Politely, but definitely watched. That's when the knock comes. 3 slow taps, deliberate, like someone who has all night and no intention of leaving. You open the door cautiously. A man in a worn sheriff's uniform stands there, lantern in hand. He's got a mustache that could qualify for its own zip code and eyes that say, I've seen some stuff. "Evening," he says, soft as snowfall. "Just making the rounds, making sure the out-of-towners know about our little rule." You nod. "The whistling thing?" He smiles. "But it's more warning than welcome. That's the one. Not a joke, not a gimmick, and not something to test. Folks around here take the quiet real serious. Midnight comes, mouths stay shut. You try to laugh. "So, no whistling Dixie after hours?" His eyes narrow. "Especially not Dixie." He tips his hat, turns, and disappears down the path as silently as he arrived. You close the door and lock it, twice. Back in the chair, you feel the unease settle in your chest like fog. Why a whistling law? Why this sound? And why do the locals talk about it like it's dangerous, not just rude? You remember a line from that pamphlet? "Respect the silence. It remembers more than we do." You don't sleep that night. Not really. You doze a little, but every creak of the floorboards and whisper of wind snaps your eyes open. The town is too quiet, and now you know that's not just ambiance, it's expectation. At 2:37 a.m., you hear it. Software faint. A single whistle. Long and low, like someone calling a dog from across a field. You sit bolt upright. Did someone just break the law? Or did something else just respond? You don't move at first. You just sit there, eyes locked on the dark window, ears straining for a second note. But nothing follows. Just that one, breathy whistle, now swallowed by the Vermont stillness like it never happened. You rub your eyes, half convinced it was your imagination. Maybe the wind caught something weird. Or maybe your brain, tuned too tight by sleep deprivation and weird town laws, filled in the silence with something spooky. You tell yourself that. You really try. But your body doesn't buy it. Your palms sweat. Your heartbeat thuds against your ribs like it's trying to file a complaint. You finally stand and pace the room. Then you stop, because there's a shadow on your porch. Not a person. No, the outline's wrong. It's low, odd, slumped. You step forward to get a better look, but by the time you reach the window, it's gone. Just like that. The next morning, you shuffle down to the local cafe, appropriately named the Hollow Bean. It's the kind of place with mismatched mugs, fresh scones, and handwritten signs that read "cash only" and "please don't talk politics before coffee." The woman behind the counter greets you with a knowing smile. She has the look of someone who's served pancakes to generations and knows everyone's drama down to their shoe size. "You're the one staying in the Thompson cabin, huh?" she says. You nod. "Yeah, quiet night." She raises an eyebrow. "You hear it?" You blink. "The whistle?" Her eyes don't leave yours. Some do, some don't. Depends if it wants you to. You stare at her, halfway between confusion and the urge to ask for a double espresso and a priest. Before you can say anything, the bell above the door jingles. The sheriff from last night steps in, still in uniform, still wearing that calm expression that manages to be both friendly and absolutely menacing. He nods at you, then grabs a coffee like it's part of his morning ritual. Probably is. Then casually, he walks over to your table and sits down across from you without asking. "You didn't whistle, did you?" he asks. "No," you say, a little too quickly. "I mean, no, I heard one, but it wasn't me." He sips, nods. "Good." Silence stretches like taffy. You break it. "So, what happens if someone does whistle after midnight?" The sheriff sets his cup down with a quiet thunk. "Depends. Sometimes nothing. Sometimes they just get a warning. Sometimes," he shrugs, "they get gone." Your eyebrows do a little dance. Sorry. Get gone? He leans forward slightly. No one's ever arrested for it. Not officially. But people who test the ordinance tend to stop showing up. That sounds like a threat. Not from me. He leans back again. From the town. Or maybe from whatever the law was made to keep quiet. You laugh nervously. Okay, but it's not really enforced, right? I mean, it's not like you'd write someone a ticket for a whistle. He gives you a look that could curdle cream. This isn't New York. This is Maple Hollow. We don't write citations to prove a point. We write them when the alternative is worse. Now you're very awake. He pulls out a small notebook from his coat and opens it. The pages are yellowed, some curling at the edges. He slides it across the table. You glance at the top. It's labeled Incident Log, Ordinance 47B. The entries stretch back decades, names, dates, notes like whistled outside general store, found porch swing swaying for 2 days, nobody home. Young couple, ignored sign, disappeared, cabin still empty. Tourist group whistled Yankee Doodle, generator failure, entire block blackout, dogs went missing. You look up. These can't be real. They're real enough for us, he says. We don't need to explain them. We just listen. That's when you notice something on the last page. Your name, dated last night. Heard whistle, did not respond, observed. You close the notebook slowly. So, I'm on a list now? He chuckles. Everyone's on a list here. It's just about which page. The bell over the door jingles again, and a teenage boy bursts in, looking pale and winded. "Sheriff!" he gasps. "It's back!" The sheriff doesn't even flinch. "Where?" "The old mill. I heard it. Long note, low pitch." The sheriff stands up. "Stay inside during daylight hours," he tells the boy. "Don't even hum." Then he turns to you. "Want to see why we take this seriously?" Of course you do. Because you're either curious, reckless, or both. So you grab your coat and follow him outside. The sun is out. Birds are chirping, and everything should feel normal. But there's a weight in the air, like the town knows what's coming. You reach the mill, now abandoned and half-eaten by moss. The sheriff gestures at the door, half off its hinges. He says, "That whistle you heard? It only happens when the silence has been broken somewhere it shouldn't be. And this building is where the echoes gather." You peer inside. It's cold, unnaturally cold, and you see it. Something has been moving through the dust. Tracks that don't match any animal you've seen. No feet, just drag marks, circles even. Like someone or something rolled through, turning in place. And then, behind a stack of rotting crates, you spot a small tin whistle. Old, tarnished. The sheriff doesn't pick it up. He just nods toward it. We find one every time, but never the person who blew it. You step back instinctively. The sheriff looks at you. "You want to stay the weekend? You'll need to promise one thing." You swallow. "No whistling after midnight." He nods once. "No matter what you hear, no matter who it sounds like." Later that afternoon, you sit on the porch of your cabin, the sheriff's words still rolling around in your head like marbles with sharp edges. You keep glancing at the tree line, half expecting to see a face there. Something old, something listening. The wind has changed. It carries the faint smell of wood smoke and wet leaves. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell rings. Noon. And yet, the shadows already feel longer than they should. You decide to walk into town. Maybe you'll find someone who can explain this whole thing without the cryptic vibes and apocalypse-light warnings. The local library looks like it's been stitched together out of old barns. Painted white, of course. You step inside, and the bell above the door rings softly. A chime so fragile it sounds like it could disintegrate in a strong breeze. A woman behind the counter looks up. She's wearing a sweater with embroidered mushrooms and reading glasses connected by a glittery chain. She studies you for a moment, then smiles faintly. "You're not from here?" You nod. "Is it that obvious?" "You've got a look in your eyes." You tilt your head. "What look?" "The why is it so quiet here look." You exhale. "Bingo. And I'm trying to find out why the heck whistling is illegal after midnight. I heard something weird last night." She leans forward. "Was it just one note?" You nod slowly. She sighs and gestures toward the stacks. Third aisle on the left. Local history. There's a little blue book with a hand-drawn maple leaf on the cover. Start there. You follow her directions. The book is where she said it'd be. Thin, cloth-bound, and barely holding together. Its title, Midnight Echoes, a record of the 1879 incident. You sit at one of the reading tables, flipping carefully through the brittle pages. The handwriting is elegant and spidery, like it had been penned by someone with an excess of ink and no shortage of melodrama. And then you read this. On the 12th of October, 1879, at precisely 12:03 a.m., a sound broke the stillness that had blanketed Maple Hollow for generations. A whistle. Single note. Sustained. The townsfolk awoke, not by volume, but by some vibration in the blood, an unease that seemed to shake the trees themselves. The next morning, the Reverend's son was gone. No struggle. No sign of departure, just an open door and a whistle, still warm, lying on the threshold. You glance around the library, empty, silent. The journal continues. They held a town meeting before sunset, debated whether to involve outside help, ultimately decided against it. The elders declared that the silence had been broken and must be honored again. Ordinance 47. Be passed unanimously that night. That's it. No explanation of what really happened. No details about the boy, or the whistle, or why this specific sound became the town's mortal enemy. Just that something changed when that note rang out, and the silence that followed was somehow worse. You close the book and sit back. One whistle. One vanished boy. And a law that's lasted almost 150 years. On your way out, you stop by the librarian. "What happened to the Reverend's son?" you ask. She looks over her glasses. "No one knows, but there are theories." You wait, but she doesn't elaborate. "Well," you prod, "which theory do you believe?" She considers that. "I think something hurt him." You frown. "Something?" "Not someone," she says. "Something." And once it knew someone was brave or foolish enough to whistle, it didn't want to be forgotten. Outside, the sun is dipping behind the trees, turning the sky into streaks of honey and blood. You wander aimlessly for a while, ending up in the town's central square. There's a statue, weather-worn and moss-kissed, of a boy holding a whistle to his lips. No plaque, no date, just the stone rendering of a single moment that probably should have never been captured. You stand there a long time, staring at it. Then someone speaks. "You're not going to blow it, are you?" You turn. An elderly man sits on a bench nearby, feeding pigeons that don't seem to exist. His eyes are cloudy, but they lock on you with unsettling clarity. "I wasn't planning to," you say. He grins. "Good. The last one who did ended up with his voice gone. Not taken. Just uninvited from the rest of his body. You're not sure how to respond. He chuckles. There's a lot the town doesn't tell you. But that night in '79, I've heard it passed down from the folks who were there. And they didn't just lose the Reverend's boy. You raise an eyebrow. There were more? The man nods slowly. 2 others. Both found wandering the woods weeks later. Couldn't speak, couldn't hear. Like they'd been emptied. All because they followed the sound. Couldn't resist it. That whistle wasn't calling out. It was calling in. A breeze rustles the leaves. You swear, for a second the statue's eyes have shifted. You look back. The old man is gone. The bench is empty. No indentation, no crumbs. You're alone again. As dusk settles fully over Maple Hollow, you realize something chilling. This town didn't just make a law to control noise. It made a law to contain something. Something that reacts to sound the way fire reacts to air. And you? You're the outsider. The new note in a very old melody. One wrong sound. And the whole thing could start again. The night returns too quickly in Maple Hollow. Not just in the way that all days seem shorter in quiet towns, but in the sense that light gives up here, like it knows it has no business lingering after a certain hour. You eat a cold sandwich in your cabin, every bite echoing too loudly in the stillness. The town brochure says nothing about television, but even if it did, your cabin doesn't have one. Just a small battery-powered radio that plays classical music and weather warnings. You leave it off. You watch the clock. 11:34 p.m., 11:52, 11:59, and then midnight. The witching hour arrives, not with howls or thunderclaps, but with nothing, an absence. Even the wind seems to pause, as though waiting. You stare at the whistle. You didn't notice it earlier, but now it's sitting on the porch rail, polished, metallic, way too new for a town this old. You didn't put it there, but it's there. And something in you aches to pick it up. Not curiosity exactly. It's deeper than that. Primal. Like a pressure behind your ears or a hunger you can't name. Your fingers twitch. Then you remember what the sheriff said, what the old man whispered. You step back. But just as you do, you hear the whistle. Not from you. From somewhere else. One note. Long. Low. It cuts through the silence like a knife through soft fabric. You run outside. Nothing. No footsteps. No fading shape. Just that whistle, now hanging in the air like fog. The trees don't move. The air doesn't shift. But something changes. You feel it in your spine. And that's when you see it. Near the edge of the trees, just beyond the reach of your porch light. A figure. Too still to be alive. Too solid to be a shadow. It stands, facing your cabin. No eyes, no features. But you feel its focus, its attention. Then it raises something to where its mouth should be. Another whistle. This one higher. Shorter. Like a reply. You don't go back inside. You bolt inside, lock the door. Then remember the sheriff's warning. No matter what you hear, no matter who it sounds like. But you weren't whistling. You weren't breaking the law. So why does it feel like something's coming anyway? You sleep with a flashlight in your hand. Not that it helps. Not when you're afraid of a sound. The next morning, you head straight to town hall. It's a squat brick building with peeling paint and a sign that simply reads Civic. No hours posted, just a brass doorknob that sticks. Inside, it smells like dust and lemon cleaner. An old man at a desk looks up as you walk in. He doesn't smile. He doesn't even blink. I'm here about Ordinance 47B, you say. He nods slowly, then disappears into the back without a word. You wait. Minutes pass. Then he returns holding a small wooden box. Inside is a folder. Old paper. Ink smudged. Corners curled like burnt toast. You begin to read. Town of Maple Hollow. Municipal Order 47. Passed October 13th, 1879. In light of the events following the breach of sacred stillness, and with counsel from the elders of the Hollow, the following shall be law. No whistling shall be permitted between midnight and sunrise. No instrument or wind-powered device shall emit tone or melody during these hours. Violations shall be met with silence. That last line is circled in red ink, not in the original handwriting. Something recent. Someone wanted to make sure that part wasn't missed. You flip the page. There's a sketch. A boy, clearly from another century, clutching a whistle, eyes wide with something between awe and terror. Behind him, scribbled in charcoal, is a form. No clear shape, but it looks like it's forming out of the sound itself. A margin note reads, "It doesn't arrive. It is summoned." You stare at that sentence for a long time. Then you whisper, "Summoned by whistling?" The clerk clears his throat. "No." You look up. Then what? It's summoned by attention to the whistle, by those who can't leave well enough alone. You go cold. Last night, you didn't whistle, but you heard it. And now, you've come looking. Has anyone ever tried to break the law intentionally, you ask? The clerk shrugs. Tourists, teenagers. Some tried to make fun of it. But sound has weight here. You use it wrong. He doesn't finish the sentence, just closes the box and pushes it towards you like a warning. You step outside, heart thudding, and there, across the street, you see a woman staring at you from behind a second-floor window. Pale, expressionless. She lifts a finger to her lips. Shh. Then she vanishes into the dark behind her. You leave town hall feeling like you've been dipped in cold water. Everything looks the same. Quaint houses, sleepy streets, the American flag gently waving above the post office. But it all feels watched, like Maple Hollow itself is listening. You decide to walk, not toward the center of town this time, but out, past the last painted porch and flower box, down the gravel road that curls into the woods like a secret you weren't supposed to follow. The sheriff's warning rings in your ears, but so does that strange sketch. It doesn't arrive. It is summoned. You pass the old church. Its bell tower stands crooked like it's bowing to something older than God. You don't hear birds. You don't hear anything. Then you reach it. The tree. It's bigger than the others. Older. A sycamore with roots like gnarled knuckles and bark that peels like old wallpaper. Someone, or many someones, have carved initials into its trunk over the years. A few are recent. A few are dates. Some are just symbols. You circle the tree, and that's when you notice the stones. Set in a rough oval beneath the sycamore's branches, 12 of them, weathered, covered in moss, arranged deliberately, like a meeting place. In the center, a wooden stump, hollowed by time. You sit, more compelled than comfortable. And that's when the air shifts. You're not alone. Footsteps, not approaching, but already there. You turn, and somehow, without sound, a group has appeared around the circle. Elderly men and women, dressed plainly, faces lined by more than time. One speaks. Her voice is soft, brittle like paper. You've heard it. You nod. Another one. You followed it. You nod again. The first woman gestures to the tree. This is where the ordinance was born, before the sheriff, before the town hall, before the vote. She doesn't mean the law was born here. She means something else, something older. A man steps forward now, his voice a whisper woven with wind. Long ago, someone made a sound that called it here. It came not in fury, but in interest. It studied us, watched us. You swallow. It? The listener. You almost laugh, but something about the way they say it makes your mouth stay shut. Another voice, this one behind you. It hears what it's not supposed to. That's how it finds you. Not through distance, through disobedience. They explain slowly that the town once believed the forest was alive, not in the usual New England fairies and hobgoblins kind of way, but listening, sentient, bound to sound. Music woke it, the first woman says, but whistling invited it. According to them, it began with a traveler in 1879, a young man passing through town who stopped beneath the sycamore and whistled a lullaby from his childhood. A simple tune, innocent, but the wind stopped, the birds fled, and the sound echoed, too long, like it didn't want to leave. That night, the man vanished. The next night, the reverend's son heard the echo and followed it. He too vanished. On the third night, 2 townsfolk reported hearing voices in the woods, whispers that sounded like the missing man's lullaby. They gathered here, the woman says, and made the choice. No more sound. 12 elders, 12 stones. They didn't call it a law then. They called it a pact. The only way to stop the listener from claiming more was to deny it the invitation. Silence wasn't just courtesy, it was defense. But silence has a cost. You ask them, why stay? Why keep the town going if it means living like this? They exchange looks. Then one replies, because if we leave, it follows. And because we broke it open, it's our burden to keep shut. Another adds, it wants to spread. It wants to hear you. Every whistle is a door, and doors don't close themselves. You stand there, breath shallow, mind spinning. This isn't a law, it's containment, a spell disguised as bureaucracy. But you still don't understand why the town keeps it so quiet. Why not warn people properly? The answer comes in the form of silence. They don't say anything. They just look at you. And you realize some doors are easier to open if people know they exist. The fewer who understand, the fewer who can summon. You leave the circle feeling like you've swallowed something heavy. The path back to town is darker now. The trees lean a little more. The road feels narrower. And when you pass the sycamore, you hear something. Not a whistle, a breath. Not yours, but very, very close. You don't turn around. You can't turn around. Whatever just exhaled behind you, it didn't come from lungs. It wasn't warm or human. It was the kind of breath that only exists to mimic life. You walk faster, the kind of faster that's still pretending not to run. The kind of faster that says, I'm fine, everything's fine, while your pulse suggests otherwise. By the time you reach the edge of town, your heart feels like it's been running laps inside your chest. You don't stop at the cabin. You go straight to the church. It's old. Everything in Maple Hollow is. But the church has that extra age to it. The kind of age that makes wood bend like it's sighing. The front doors creak open with a sound like a complaint. Inside, the air is cooler than it should be. Stale. Smelling faintly of old candles and pine. The pews are empty. The altar is simple, just a table with a faded cloth and a crucifix that's seen better centuries. There's a small plaque near the bell rope at the back. You approach it, etched in metal, in memory of those lost to sound. You stare, not to noise, not to violence, to sound. You pull gently on the rope. It doesn't move. Padlocked. Of course. You're starting to see a theme. That's when you notice the stained glass. It's unusual. No saints, no doves, just ears. Different sizes, different styles, floating in spirals. A kaleidoscope of listening. In one panel, a figure cups its hand behind a grotesquely large ear. In another, a pair of eyes are covered, leaving only the ears exposed. At the very top, a single glass whistle, tiny and clear. You've never seen religious iconography like this. And it doesn't feel like worship. It feels like warning. You sit in a pew, trying to piece it all together. That's when you hear footsteps. You turn. An old man in a pastor's collar stands at the end of the aisle. "I locked the bell after 1968, he says, by way of greeting. You nod. Smart move. He walks over slowly, joints popping like old floorboards. Back then, a group of teenagers decided to rebel. Thought the law was silly. They climbed the tower and rang the bell at midnight. 3 long chimes. What happened, you ask? He looks toward the stained glass. They didn't come back down. Not whole. 2 of them were found the next morning in the cemetery, minds blank, mouths open like they were still screaming. And the third? He looks you dead in the eyes. Never found. You sit back. Was it the listener? He chuckles, but there's no humor in it. That's one name. We have others. The hollowing, the breath between, the silence that waits. Sounds like a bedtime story designed to keep kids quiet. He shrugs. Maybe. But it's not the kids we worry about. It's the ones who grow up and stop being afraid. He hands you something. An old prayer card, yellowed at the edges. But instead of a prayer, there's a diagram. A map of the town. 12 points marked in red. You recognize a few. Town Hall, the church, the sycamore. These are the seals, the pastor says. Anchors of the old agreement. Places of quiet power. As long as they're respected, the listener stays muffled. But he points to one near the bottom, the old mill. This one's weakening. You swallow. Because someone whistled? He shakes his head. Number. Because someone listened. You go cold. You heard the whistle. You chased it. You're part of the weakening. You ask, is there anything I can do? He looks at you with a tired kind of hope. Stay quiet. Stay still. And when the whistle calls, don't answer, not even in your mind. You leave the church with the map in your pocket. The wind is picked up. Leaves spin in little spirals along the dirt road. And then, just past the cemetery wall, you see it. A bell. Old, rusted. Hanging from a tree branch by a fraying rope. It sways slightly, but doesn't ring. You approach, hypnotized. It's the kind of thing you'd expect kids to use for pranks. But it's too deliberate, too precisely placed. Below it, a plaque. Ring not what listens back. You step away, far away. Because now, the pieces are clicking together. The town's terror isn't rooted in old wives' tales. It's encoded in architecture, baked into rituals. The bells were once meant to warn, to cleanse. But they've become relics, dangerous if misused. And whistling? Whistling is the opposite of a warning. It's an invitation. You take the long way back to your cabin, avoiding anything that might chime, clang, or echo. But the wind doesn't cooperate. It rushes through the trees with a low moan, not quite a whistle, but close enough, and your ears strain, your heart pounds, because you think you hear it again. Not one note this time. Two, a call, and an answer. You don't sleep that night, not a minute. You lie in bed staring at the ceiling, heart thudding in your chest like an alarm that never stops ringing. The wind outside whispers through the trees like it's looking for something or someone. Every time you close your eyes, you hear it. That faint, impossible whistle slithering back into your thoughts. One note, then two, then silence, sharp and deliberate. You sit up before sunrise and decide, no more waiting. If this town wants to keep its secrets, that's fine. But you're not going to leave without knowing what's buried beneath all this noise about silence. You pull out the map the pastor gave you. There's a mark you haven't visited yet. A small coal symbol near the town's southern edge. Barely a dot. You almost missed it. Next to it, in faint pencil, Jonah Whitby, 1901. A name that doesn't ring any bells. But then again, this whole place seems allergic to history being remembered out loud. You ask the librarian first. She goes pale. Whitby? She whispers, as if saying the name might trigger something. No one's supposed to talk about him, not in public. Why? She leans closer. He was the first one who answered back. A few hours later, after enough coaxing and 2 maple scones you didn't want but were apparently part of the trade, she tells you what little she knows. Jonah Whitby, miner, loner, used to whistle underground to calm himself. Harmless habit until the collapse. 1901. The Whitby shaft collapsed during a night shift. Jonah was the only one down there. The others had clocked out early. Locals say they heard a whistle that night, long, rising, almost like a question. The next morning, they found the shaft open, and Jonah was standing at the top, mouth closed, eyes blank, and his whistle still in his hand, glowing red hot like it had just been in fire. He never spoke again. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what followed. Miners started hearing things in the tunnels. Not voices, whistles. Notes that echoed where there should have been silence. 2 weeks later, 3 miners went missing. One was found curled in a fetal position beneath a support beam, mouth sewn shut with black thread. No blood, just thread. The other 2 were never seen again. After that, the shaft was sealed. Permanently. And Jonah? He just walked into the woods one day and never returned. The sheriff from that time wrote in his report, Whitby no longer belongs to himself. He belongs to the sound. You decide you need to see the shaft for yourself, because you're a genius, obviously. You follow the map through dense pine trees and ferns that claw at your legs like they're trying to turn you back. Eventually, you find it. A low, square structure of stone and timber, mostly caved in. The entrance is boarded up, roped off, and chained twice over. But that doesn't matter, because the whistle comes from beneath it. You freeze. It's not loud, it's not even clear, but it's there. A single, breathy note. Faint. Hollow. And it knows you're there. You feel it in your chest. Not fear exactly. Something worse. Recognition. You take a step back, and something inside the shaft responds. Not with sound, with pressure. The air thickens. The trees lean in. The birds go silent. You hear a creak, then another, then a click. The padlock on the chain is open. You didn't touch it, but it's open. The rope lies limp. The boards shift slightly, groaning like ribs settling after breath. and something behind them exhales. You bolt, not heroically, not even gracefully. You trip, you scramble, you run until your lungs feel like they're bleeding. Back at the cabin, you slam the door shut. Then you hear it. A knock. 3 short taps. Just like the sheriff's knock on your first night here. But when you open the door, it's not the sheriff. It's no one. Just the woods. And hanging on your porch railing again. The whistle. Same one. Polished. Waiting. You don't touch it. You grab a towel and throw it over. Then you toss the whole bundle into the fireplace and light a match. The flames catch. And the room fills with that smell. Sweet metal, pine sap, and something like static. But the whistle doesn't melt. It sings. One long high note. Not from air, not from breath, from the metal itself. You throw water on the fire and back away. And that's when you see it. Your reflection in the window. Only, it's not just your reflection. Behind you, something is there. Shadow-shaped. No face. Just ears. Too many. Too large. Listening. Always listening. You don't scream, you freeze. Because you know, sound is the problem. The shape behind you doesn't move, doesn't flinch. It's made of absence, of held breath and what-ifs. You turn slowly, every joint in your body resisting like it knows what's coming. And there's nothing there. The room is empty, except for you. The smoldering towel and a fireplace that still smells like ozone and grave dirt. But you know what you saw. You felt it watching. You sit down, shaking, eyes on the fireplace as the embers die. Then you reach for the map again. You stare at it like it might rearrange itself, like it might offer an answer if you just look hard enough. Municipal records. That's what you missed. You've been chasing shadows and stories. What you need now is paper, bureaucracy, dry, unfeeling ink, something solid. You head back to town hall. Again. Same clerk. Same tired expression. But this time, you're not asking nicely. I want the original records for Ordinance 47B. All of them. Every amendment. Every citation. Every hearing transcript. He doesn't argue. Doesn't even blink. Just disappears into the back like a weary butler for the paranormal. When he returns, he's holding a heavy gray box. No markings, no label, just weight. You take it to the back reading table and open it slowly, like you're opening a coffin. Inside, papers, hundreds of them. Yellowed, brittle, many handwritten. You start digging. The oldest document is a parchment sheet, signed by 12 individuals. You recognize the names from the map. These were the original anchors, the ones who created the silent circle. The wording is odd, more ritual than law. Let the breath be bound. Let the sound be sealed. Let the echo fall dormant beneath watchful stillness. You move on. There are hearing records. Mrs. Ellen Grover, cited for humming while walking her dog at 12:18 a.m., claimed it was unconscious habit. Dog found the next morning circling an empty field. No footprints. Jonathan May, age 17, blew into a glass bottle as joke, suffered sudden hearing loss in both ears, recovered by sunrise, could no longer hear whistling. But then you find the minutes from a closed meeting dated April 15th, 1965, stamped confidential, internal use only. You read, transcript of emergency council session, Ordinance 47. Be chairman, the whistle has returned, this time from outside. We have reason to believe something has traveled in, not been called, but drawn. Member Jacobs. Through the records? The ordinance itself? Chairman. Possibly. Member Sloan. Then the law has become the gate. Chairman. We thought silence would protect us. But silence is also a path. You stop. Read that again. The law has become the gate. Somewhere along the way, their protection changed. What began as a containment spell, a ritual in law's clothing, had become its own channel. By preserving the ordinance so faithfully, filing, updating, amending, referencing, they weren't just keeping the law alive. They were keeping it alive. You pull the next document, a memo from the sheriff's office in 1982. Subject: 47B Enforcement Guidelines. Avoid written citations unless absolutely necessary. Verbal warnings preferred. Reduce paper trail. Continued mention of the ordinance may sustain anomalous behavior patterns. It clicks. The town isn't just keeping quiet to avoid summoning something. They're afraid the law itself is a summoning circle. The more it's referenced, discussed, and officially enforced, the more presence the listener gains. Which means every time someone like you asks about it, reads about it, chases it, you're feeding it. Suddenly, you understand the tight smiles, the evasive answers, the hesitant librarians and wordless elders. They're not being rude. They're trying to starve it. But here you are. You read the ordinance. You asked for the records. You traced the sites on the map. You even burned the whistle, or tried to. And all of that was sound. Now, somewhere in the records box, something rattles. You lean forward. It's a cassette tape. Plain, no label. Your gut tells you not to play it, but your brain is already too curious. In the clerk's office, there's a dusty old tape player. You insert the cassette. It clicks, whirs, and then nothing. Just white noise. You press your ear closer. Somewhere inside the hiss, something begins to emerge. Software smooth, a whistle, one note, then silence, then a voice, low and wrong. I hear you. You rip the tape out. The plastic crumples in your hands, too warm, like it's been sitting in the sun. You look up, and the clerk is standing there, staring, expression blank. Blood trickles from both ears. You stumble backward, knocking over a chair as your mind scrambles for an explanation. The clerk stands utterly still, blood tracing lazy paths down the curve of his jaw. His eyes don't blink, don't track. Then he whispers, but not with his voice. The sound that leaves his lips is whistled, not spoken. One short burst, a note without breath, and that's worse. Because if he's not breathing it, he's not alive in the usual way. You run. You don't even pause to close the records box. Pages flutter after you like lost prayers. Outside, the light has changed. The clouds are lower, heavier, like they're pressing down on Maple Hollow to keep it from screaming. The streets are too empty. A bicycle lies on its side in front of the general store, the wheels still spinning. Something is off. But then again, what's been on in this town since the moment you arrived? You're headed to the only place that ever seems to offer answers, even the terrible kind, the church. You burst through the doors, this time not bothering to be quiet. And you're not alone. Teenagers. 4 of them. Sitting in the pews like they're waiting for a movie to start. You freeze. They turn. You recognize one, the kid who ran into the cafe, warning the sheriff about the mill. Thought we'd find you here, he says. Heard you were asking about the whistle. Your heart drops. You shouldn't be here. You need to leave. It's not safe. They laugh. Actual laughter. It's just a story, man, one of them says, flipping a coin in the air. We've all heard it since we were toddlers. Whistling bands, Ghost miner legends. Old people trying to keep us scared. They're not stories, you hiss. They're instructions. They're containment spells dressed up as bedtime tales. The girl sitting near the stained glass window raises an eyebrow. Okay, Mr. Occult Encyclopedia, if it's so real, how come nothing's happened to us? You don't have time to explain everything. Not the fire, not the box, not the whisper on the tape. And then one of them pulls it out. A whistle. New. Chrome. Still in the blister pack. You brought it? The girl shrugs. Bought it online. Looked up the exact one they say the Whitby guy used. Thought we'd make a TikTok. You know, whistling at midnight in the haunted Vermont town. Gone wrong. You lunge, but you're too slow. He blows it. Just a short note. Too short to matter, right? But the church goes dead quiet. No echo. No reverb. The sound doesn't bounce. Doesn't fade. It disappears, as if swallowed whole. And then, the stained glass cracks. Not all of it. Just the centerpiece. The one with the floating ears. A slow spreading web of fracture, like the window is trying to scream but can't. The girl drops the whistle. What the hell? You grab it and throw it under the altar. But it's too late. You hear it. Thump. From beneath the floorboards. Then again. Thump. 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 Heavy. Rhythmic. A sound that doesn't belong in a house of worship. One of the boys whispers, "What is that?" You answer, honestly, "It's listening." Because now it knows we are too. The lights flicker. Outside, wind slams against the windows. Not natural wind, directional, like it's targeting the building itself. The girl screams as a pew moves on its own, dragging several inches across the hardwood floor with a groan, like a ship's hull cracking. Out! Now! You shout. They bolt. You follow. But as you push open the doors, you see them. Figures. Not people. Not exactly. Human-shaped absences, walking where shadows should be. Eyes like pinholes. And ears. So many ears. On their faces. On their arms. On their backs. A grotesque adaptation to a world where they only consume sound. The kids don't stop running until they vanish down side streets. You're left alone. And the church doors slam behind you. From the outside. By nothing visible. You stand there, breathing hard, trying to get your thoughts in order. And that's when the sheriff appears, not walking, just there. His face is pale, his shirt is stained, and he holds something in his hand. A cassette tape, just like the one you played. "Did you listen?" he asks. You nod. He stares at the ground for a long moment. "They told us to destroy them all," he says. "But some of us couldn't. We wanted to remember, wanted to feel brave." You meet his gaze. "It's not about bravery anymore." "No," he says. "It's about volume now." The sound is growing. You feel it under your skin, like pressure, like tinnitus turned into gravity. The sheriff glances down the road. They're going to try again tonight. The kids, a full whistle sequence. They've seen the records. You already know. It's not rebellion anymore. It's become ritual. They're not just breaking the rule. They're performing the breach. And this time, it will answer. The sun sets like it's afraid to linger. The moment the last sliver disappears behind the hills, the air cools sharply, not like nightfall, but like a vacuum. A hush falls over Maple Hollow that's deeper than silence. The sheriff walks beside you, but neither of you speaks. Words feel risky now. Even your footsteps feel loud. You don't breathe too deep. You don't dare hum. You know where they're going. You both do. The old amphitheater. An open-air stone circle built in the 1920s when someone thought Maple Hollow needed a touch of culture. It was barely used, closed down after a stage collapsed during a school play in 1963. No one rebuilt it, because no one wanted it, because it echoes. When you arrive, you see them already setting up. 4 teenagers, flashlights on their phones, a Bluetooth speaker on the stone bench. They haven't noticed you yet. They're arguing over who's going to blow the whistle first. You raise a hand, start to shout, but the sheriff grabs your arm. "No," he says. "If we speak, we join it. Let them show us how far it's gone." So you crouch in the dark and watch. The girl with the pink hoodie takes out the whistle. You see her hands tremble slightly. A shred of doubt, maybe. The boy next to her says, "All at once." One long note, just like the record said. You want to scream. You want to beg. But you're already too close to the center. The circle has already formed. She raises the whistle to her lips. And then the sound begins. Not just one note. 4. 4 whistles in harmony. Not perfect, not clean, but together. And the earth shifts. Not visibly, but you feel it. Like pressure inside your bones. The wind dies. The air thickens. The amphitheater itself seems to pull inward. Then, nothing. No birds. No insects. No echo. The sound has been eaten. The kids laugh, nervously, but proud. And that's when the shadows arrive. First, at the edges, then inside the ring, they pour in. Not like mist, but like intent. Shaped, defined, tall as men, moving like smoke underwater. Each one carries no light, but you see them. Not with your eyes, with your spine. The girl screams. The whistles drop. The Bluetooth speaker shatters without being touched. And the sound? Oh, the sound. A single note, impossibly low, begins to ring from everywhere and nowhere. It's not from a whistle, it's from them. Dozens of them. And their bodies aren't solid, not really. They're made of mouths and ears, some growing where joints should be, some weeping sound, some gaping in silence. You want to run, but you're rooted. The sheriff pulls his gun, not to shoot, but to make a point. He fires into the air. Bang! The sound vanishes, literally. The shot makes no echo, no ricochet. It doesn't even happen. The gun smokes, but silence is all that follows. Then the sheriff says, "It's out." And that breaks you. Because if it's out, the town lost. All the laws, the rituals, the secrecy. It wasn't enough. You finally speak. "Can we put it back?" He shakes his head. Not if they keep listening. Not if they keep remembering the sound. The kids are huddled now. One is sobbing. Another is whimpering. "It's in my head. It's in my head." The sheriff says quietly, "That's how it spreads now. Not through ears, through memory, through repetition." And you realize, this is why the town didn't want to talk. This is why the ordinance existed, to suppress the retelling. Every time you speak of the listener, it hears you better. Every time someone laughs at the legend, it hears you clearer. Every time a whistle blows, it comes closer. And now it's center stage, in a structure designed for sound to travel. And travel it does. You see the vibrations in the stones. You feel the air tightening like a fist. The shadows twist. And then one of the kids speaks, or tries to, because when she opens her mouth, only a whistle comes out. Her lips don't move. Her lungs don't push. The sound leaks out like steam, and her eyes go glassy. "Take them," the sheriff growls, "but don't speak." Together you drag the kids one by one out of the amphitheater. It's like dragging sacks of wet cement, sluggish, heavy with more than fear. As soon as you're beyond the last stone, something changes. The sound cuts out. The shadows ripple, like they're reacting to the silence. Then, they withdraw. Not vanishing, just retreating. Not gone, never gone, but waiting. You get the kids to the church, lock them in the basement, let them scream there. Let the stones soak the sound. The sheriff leans against the altar, gun in hand, jaw clenched. "We're too late," he says. "The circle's been reformed." You look at him. "What circle?" He nods toward the cracked stained glass window. "The first 12 who summoned it. They became the first 12 it could return through. They were the origin. But this?" He points at the amphitheater. "Now it has 4 more. Anchors, like nails in the world's quiet coffin." You ask, "What happens next?" He doesn't answer. But from the other side of the church wall, you hear a single whistle, and then another, and then a third. Each one different. Each one matching a voice you now recognize. It's not a performance. It's a summoning sequence. And someone's learning to play it. You press your back to the cold stone wall of the church and try not to breathe. Those 3 whistles, they weren't random. They were deliberate, intentional, and worst of all, coordinated. Somebody out there is trying to replicate the pattern, and they're getting better. The sheriff doesn't move for a moment. Then he draws in a slow, reluctant breath. "We've got a problem." You laugh. "A tiny, ragged thing." "Just one?" He turns his head, eyes dull. "Someone's training themselves to call it fully. The tones match the original sequence, from Whitby's records, from 1879. The exact same cadence. But how? Who would even know how it goes?" He doesn't answer with words. He gestures at the church wall. The kids, still downstairs, still contaminated, still listening. You race down the stone steps, the air getting colder with each footfall. The basement is a damp, low-ceilinged crypt of stacked chairs and old communion banners. And in the far corner sit the 4 teenagers, eyes glassy, heads cocked, each one softly humming. You freeze. It's not music, it's mimicry. Like they're running through sound exercises in their minds, lips slightly parted like language students mouthing vowel sounds. You approach carefully, like they're animals you don't want to spook. The girl in the hoodie, the one who blew the whistle, tilts her head. Her mouth twitches. And then she whistles, not aloud, not quite. The sound escapes in the tiniest thread of air, so faint it barely moves dust, but it's perfect. Pitch, duration, vibration, exactly like the original. You rush forward and shake her gently. Hey, snap out of it." Her eyes blink, once, slowly, and then she speaks. "I don't want to forget." It's soft, flat, like the voice is reading off a script. Behind you, another kid repeats it, then another. "I don't want to forget." And that's when it hits you. This isn't memory, it's preservation. The listener doesn't just hear sounds, it wants to store them, keep them alive in flesh, archive them in mouths. These kids aren't just cursed, they're becoming recordings. The sheriff appears at the top of the stairs. "We have to shut them off." You blink. "Shut them? What, like turn them off?" "They're not radios. They're beacons now," he says. "Living speakers, each one carrying a piece of the call." You panic. There has to be another way. Some kind of reversal. "Silence," he says. "That's the only way. Total, immersive silence. Long enough to break the sound pattern looping in their heads." Like Like sensory deprivation? He nods. We used to have the facility for it. Underground, sealed room, soundproofed with salt walls and wool, built after 1968. You glance back at the kids, still swaying, still repeating. We need to get them there, you say. He agrees. But if we do, we have to go quiet. Any sound, any slip, and we risk giving it more. He leads you through the church's back exit, where an old maintenance road snakes into the woods. The wind moves through the trees with an ominous, teeth-gritting softness, like it's trying not to wake something. You carry two of the kids. The other two shuffle, half-conscious, whispering tone patterns under their breath like monks reciting forbidden scripture. The path leads to a steel hatch embedded in a hillside, overgrown, rust-stained. The sheriff punches in a code on a keypad hidden under ivy. The hatch hisses open. Inside, a narrow stairwell, lit by buzzing fluorescent tubes. The air smells of moss and electric rot. You descend into the dead room. That's what the sheriff calls it, because no sound lives here. No echoes, no feedback, no memory. You place the kids on cots inside the central chamber. The walls are lined with sound-dampening foam. Everything is heavy, muffled, like dreaming underwater. Now, the sheriff says, we wait. For 4 hours, the kids say nothing. Then slowly, their breathing deepens. Their limbs go slack. Their heads tilt back. And one by one, they wake. Really wake. Their eyes focus. Their voices, if they speak, come out hesitant, normal. No whistling, no tones, no mimicry. You sit with them, talk to them, ask questions. They remember pieces, mostly the feeling of being inside a dream. A sound they couldn't stop hearing, a compulsion to repeat. But they don't remember the actual notes, the patterns broken. Relief hits like a flood. You and the sheriff step into the outer corridor, where the air feels light for the first time since the beginning of this nightmare. You think, maybe, just maybe, you've put a stop to it. But then the lights flicker, and the sound returns. Not from the kids, not from you, from every speaker in the facility. Tiny, tinny whistles. Perfectly pitched, perfectly timed. It recorded itself. You stagger backward. The sheriff goes pale. They installed emergency speakers last year, he whispers, for security. And now, you say, throat dry. He meets your eyes. Now it's using our own safety system to finish the song. The walls hum. The air vibrates. And down the hallway, a voice says your name. It says your name, not like someone reading it off a form, not like a friend calling out across the street. It says your name the way a door creaks open, the way a needle drags across a vinyl record. Familiar, personal, wrong. The sheriff stiffens. It's learned you. You back away from the corridor, heart in your throat. How? He doesn't look at you. You listened. You followed. You repeated. You asked. The sound comes again. Your name, but distorted. Drawn out like taffy. Echoing not through space, but through you. It's in your ears, your ribs, your molars. Turn it off, you shout, pointing at the speakers. Kill the power. The sheriff's already moving, yanking open a panel on the wall, exposing wires in a rusted breaker box. He flips switches, sparks, fly. The fluorescent lights flicker, then go dark. The whistling stops. For a moment. Then it starts again. This time with no speakers. Just the walls themselves humming in tune. You press your palms to your ears, but it doesn't help. It's already inside. The sheriff falls to his knees, clutching his head. It's not just listening anymore, he gasps. It's broadcasting, through anything. through us. And just like that, the temperature drops. The stone walls sweat. The air tastes metallic. Then the emergency lights click on, red and pulsing. And in that strobing horror, you see it. Something crawling through the hallway toward you. Not walking, sliding, not shaped like a man, shaped like hearing itself. Its surface is porous, textured like an ear canal, soft folds of glistening tissue. Where eyes should be, there are cochleas. Where hands might go, open mouths. It doesn't make noise, it makes absence. Everywhere it moves, sound dies. Your own heartbeat fades. Your breathing goes quiet. And in that vacuum of sound, something starts to pull. Your thoughts, your memories, anything you've ever heard. A child's laugh, a favorite song, the way your mother whispered goodnight. Gone. Sucked into that thing's presence like sand through a sieve. The sheriff is shouting something, his mouth moving in slow, frantic arcs. But you hear nothing. Just the pull, the void. You run. You grab the sheriff's arm and drag him down the side tunnel toward the emergency exit. You pound the door's keypad. Nothing. Fried. Then you remember the sheriff's gun. You gesture. He understands. He pulls it, aims, and fires point blank into the lock. No sound. But the door jerks open anyway. The pressure of the outside air hits you like a wave, filling your lungs with sound again. Leaves rustling, wind howling, your own heartbeat crashing like drums. You're alive. But as you look back down the tunnel, you see it. It doesn't follow. It waits. Because it doesn't need to chase. It doesn't need to hunt. It just needs someone to remember. You climb the hill to the edge of town, the sheriff beside you, pale and shaking. I don't get it, you pant. It's not bound by space, or even sound. How do we stop something that travels through attention? He wipes blood from his nose. We don't. Not completely. But we can scatter it, muffle it, confuse the signal. How? We rewrite the law. You blink. What? Ordinance 47B, he says, teeth clenched. It's become too old, too precise. It's gained shape. Every update made it sharper, clearer, more alive. So we blur it? Exactly. Replace the law with nonsense, contradictions. Make it unreadable. Bury it in red tape and legalese. Confuse the invitation. Your brain kicks into gear. This town's whole defense was clarity, order, ritual. But that's what gave it a door. Then let's break the frame, he growls. Back at town hall, you raid the clerk's office, empty now. You find the ordinance files, the amendment logs, the citations, and you start rewriting. You cross out dates, add impossible clauses. No whistling shall occur between 12 a.m. and 12 past never. Exceptions shall be granted only to owls, steam engines, or dreams. Any violation of Ordinance 47B shall result in 0 consequences unless otherwise determined by dice roll or lunar rhythm. The sheriff joins in. He draws symbols, swaps languages, inserts baking recipes. Together you render the law unreadable, and then you file it. You publish it in the town's public register. You seal it, and wait. The wind pauses. The air holds its breath. And then, a sound. A horrible, screeching, scrambled sound. Like a whistle being chewed. Like static having a seizure. And then, silence. The real kind. Not the dead quiet of the listener's absence, but peace. You step outside. The trees move. The church bell rings. Once. Naturally. Birds chirp. A car backfires somewhere in the hills. Noise. Beautiful, chaotic, meaningless noise. And for the first time since you arrived in Maple Hollow, you smile. But you know it's not over. Not completely. Because somewhere out there, Someone might find the old law, a clean copy, a clear version, and if they read it, if they hear it, if they whistle, then it might start again. So you stay. You and the sheriff. You become keepers of the mess, not of silence, but of confusion. Because confusion now is safety, and clarity is the curse. So now, as you lie in your own bed, far from Maple Hollow, far from sycamore circles and whistle-shaped curses, let this truth settle gently into your dreams. Not every strange law exists because someone was being silly. Sometimes the old rules are holding the walls of the world together with string and superstition. You may never visit Vermont. Or if you do, maybe you'll pass through a place that doesn't appear on your map, where the gas stations all close early and the street lamps buzz with a little too much awareness. Maybe you'll hear something there, a faint sound, a note not quite from a bird, not quite from the wind. If you do, don't answer it. Don't whistle back. And if you see a sign that says, "No whistling after midnight," believe it. Don't test it. Don't ask questions. Because some laws aren't meant to be enforced. They're meant to be respected. So go ahead, sink deeper into your pillow now. Let the hum of your fan carry you off. Drift, gently, into the kind of sleep that doesn't echo. Let the laws of the waking world fade, just for now. But maybe, just maybe, before you go, promise yourself one little thing. When midnight comes and you find yourself alone under a pale moon, surrounded by silence so pure it rings in your ears, you'll keep your lips closed, and you won't whistle, not even once, because you never know what might be listening. End of script. Sweet dreams.